Have you ever noticed how often we wait for the perfect moment to feel inspired? We tell ourselves we will start when we feel ready, when motivation shows up, when things calm down. But that moment rarely comes. And while we wait, life moves on. Opportunities fade. Connections weaken. Growth stalls. The truth is, discipline does not begin with inspiration. It begins in silence and presence, in the quiet decision to show up anyway. And when it comes to social intelligence, the ability to read and respond to people deeply, that presence begins before you even speak. It begins with your eyes. What you are about to discover is not a collection of tricks or social hacks. This is about rewiring the way you see people, the way you hold space, the way you lead, influence, and build trust without needing to dominate. If you stay with this journey, by the end, you will have built a presence that speaks before words do, a quiet strength that earns respect, invites trust, and deepens every relationship in your life. It starts now. Chapter 1. Build trust by looking people straight in the eyes. Trust does not begin with a handshake or a promise. It begins in silence, in the first glance, the first moment your eyes meet another's. And yet, most people rush right past that moment. They speak too soon. They shift their gaze. They look down at their phones or glance around the room, missing the one thing that makes connection possible: presence. If you want to master human relationships, influence others, and grow in self-awareness, start here with your eyes. Look people straight in the eyes, not to intimidate, not to stare, but to be fully there. Because when someone feels truly seen, they begin to trust you, not because of what you say, but because of how you show up. Most people do not do this. They talk fast. They check the time. Their mind is ahead of the moment. And that creates a gap, a space where connection could have happened but never did. But when you are present, when your gaze is calm, steady, and grounded, something powerful happens. People soften. They open. They feel safe. You see, human beings are wired to skin eyes. From the time we are infants, we look to our mother's eyes to feel safe. That never changes. We just become more subtle about it. As adults, we still crave that same signal: you are safe here. You matter, and your eye contact, more than your words, delivers that message. Think back to the last time someone looked at you with full attention, no rush, no performance, just stillness. You remember it, do you not? Because it was rare. And because it felt real. That is what you must learn to give others. That is the start of influence. That is the beginning of emotional intelligence. You do not need to say more. You need to be more present. Because people do not follow logic, they follow energy. And when your energy says, "I see you," without distraction, people naturally trust you. They relax. They reveal more. They feel understood without needing to explain. That is a rare gift in a noisy world. Now let us be clear. Looking someone in the eyes is not about staring them down or trying to impress. It is about holding space with your attention. It is about being still enough to feel the moment. And when you do that, your own nervousness starts to fade. Your focus sharpens. You begin to read what others miss: a slight hesitation, a flicker of emotion, a shift in tone. You become someone who sees. And this habit, practiced daily, changes you. It builds your internal stability. It anchors you in the present. It forces you to stop hiding behind words and stand in the power of your calm. That is why eye contact is not just a social tool, it is a discipline. And like all disciplines, it must be trained. You must do it even when it feels uncomfortable. Especially then. If you avoid eye contact, it might be because you are unsure of yourself. Maybe you think the right words matter more. They do not. What matters is whether the person in front of you feels like they have your full attention. That is how you earn trust. Not by proving yourself, but by showing up fully, quietly, and honestly. So practice this everywhere: in a meeting, with a friend, ordering coffee. Be the person who is not rushing, not scrolling, not looking past the moment. Just be there. Look them in the eyes. Let them feel your focus. You will be amazed how much people tell you without saying anything. And you will be surprised how much trust you earn without having to say a word. That is the foundation. That is the first step. Because until you can be fully present, you cannot fully connect. And until you can connect, you cannot influence, lead, or grow with others. So start here. Not with louder speech. Not with clever techniques. Start with stillness. With presence. With your eyes. Because in a world full of noise, the calm gaze of someone fully present is unforgettable. Chapter 2. Speak less and start paying full attention daily. We are taught from a young age to speak well, to present, to explain, to express. But rarely are we taught the deeper discipline, the power of full attention. In every conversation, every interaction, every moment with another human being, and if you want to master connection, if you want to be someone others trust, you must learn this first. Real communication begins not with your words, but with your focus. The loudest voice in the room is not always the most powerful. Often, it is the quiet observer, the one who sees what others miss, the one who listens without needing to speak, who holds the deepest influence. Because while others rush to be heard, the wise slow down to understand. That is where real insight lies. That is where trust is built. Most people do not listen to understand. They listen to respond. They are waiting for their turn to speak, rehearsing their reply before the other person even finishes. And that habit, that lack of presence, destroys connection before it ever begins. You cannot understand someone if your mind is not fully with them. You cannot build trust if your focus is split. You cannot lead if you are always reacting. So let me ask you, when was the last time you gave someone your full attention? No distractions. No phone. No agenda. Just the discipline of being fully there. If you are like most people, that moment is hard to recall. And that is the problem. Because people are starving for presence. They are starving to be heard without being rushed. They are starving for someone who actually listens. The truth is, you do not need to say much to make someone feel understood. You just need to stay. To listen deeply. To be still long enough to hear what they are not saying. Because underneath every word is a tone. A pause. A tension. And only someone fully present will catch it. But this kind of presence is not easy. It requires self-control. It requires that you silence the noise in your own mind. That you stop making every interaction about what you will say next. That you allow space for the other person, and for the truth that may be waiting in the quiet. Silence is not weakness. It is power. And when used with intention, it becomes your greatest tool. Because in the silence, people reveal who they are. In the silence, you begin to see what is real. You notice the moment their voice changes. You catch the hesitation. You feel the difference between words and emotion. And that makes you wise. This is what most people never learn. They think speaking more equals value. But value comes from depth, not volume. You add value when you listen with care. When your eyes say, "I am here with you," when your stillness becomes the space where others feel safe enough to open. You want to influence others? Then first become someone who listens with full focus. You want to lead? Then be the one who sees what others miss. You want to build deep relationships? Then create moments where people feel seen, not because you spoke well, but because you stayed long enough for the real conversation to begin. And here is the beautiful part: the more you do this, the more grounded you become. Your mind calms down. Your reactions slow. You stop interrupting. You become patient, present, strong. Because when you are not constantly rushing to speak, you begin to see the truth more clearly in others and in yourself. So practice this today. In your next conversation, resist the urge to speak first. Let silence stretch. Let the other person finish fully. Listen to their tone, not just their words. Look at their eyes. Hold your response. And just stay. You will learn more in that stillness than you ever could by rushing in with advice. And when you do speak, speak with clarity. Speak only when it adds value. Let your words be few, but let them carry weight. That is the way of those who led quietly but powerfully. The world does not need more noise. It needs more people who are present, who see, who care enough to listen. So make that your discipline. Speak less. Focus more. And let your presence become your power. Chapter 3. Notice people's tone when they say simple things. Most people listen to what is said. Very few listen to how it is said. And that difference, that subtle shift in awareness, is what separates someone who simply hears from someone who truly understands. Because when it comes to connection, it is not just the words that matter. It is the tone, the timing, the silence in between. And often the truth does not live in what people tell you. It hides in how they tell it. You want to know what someone is really feeling. Do not just listen to their words. Listen to the tremble, the sharpness, the speed, the hesitation in their voice. People can hide behind smiles. They can hide behind polite sentences. But the voice rarely lies. It carries the weight. It carries attention. It carries the truth that the mind is trying to suppress. Someone says, "I'm fine," but their tone is clipped too fast, too tight. You sense something is off. Someone says it's okay, but their voice flattens, no warmth, no lightness. And if you are present, truly tuned in, you hear it. You catch the mismatch between words and emotion. And that is when connection begins. Because now, you are not reacting to words. You are responding to feelings. Most people miss this. They are too focused on themselves. Too distracted. Too ready to move on. But you, if you want to be someone others trust, someone they confide in, you must learn to listen deeper. Not with your ears alone, but with your presence. With your awareness. with your ability to sense the emotional layer beneath the spoken one. This is not about being dramatic. It is about being perceptive. Because human beings are always leaking truth not through confessions, but through their tone, their rhythm, their pace. And if you train yourself to pay attention to those things, you gain a quiet advantage. You begin to feel the room differently. You sense tension before it explodes. You feel sadness before it is admitted. You hear doubt before it turns into withdrawal. But this kind of listening requires discipline. You cannot be halfway present. You cannot be thinking about what to say next. You have to slow down. Still your thoughts. Empty your assumptions. And just listen. Fully. Quietly. Completely. When you do this, something powerful happens. People feel understood even if they did not explain. They sense that you noticed. They feel seen in a way that is rare. And that feeling creates safety. That safety creates trust. And that trust creates relationships that last. You do not need to ask deep questions all the time. Sometimes you just need to hear how they said sure. Was it light? Was it forced? Was it resigned? One word, 10 different meanings. And if you are present, you will know exactly which one is real. That is the skill. That is the mastery. And it comes not from talking more, but from listening better. The voice is a mirror. It reflects the inner state. It shows you what the words cannot. And your job is not to analyze or judge. It is simply to be aware. To feel it. To let it guide how you respond. Because when you do that, when you match your energy to what is real, not what is being performed, you become the kind of person others open up to naturally. Let me tell you this, when someone is hurting, they rarely say, "I'm hurting." They say, "I'm tired," but their tone says more. When someone is stressed, they might say it's nothing, but their voice gets short, tense. And when someone is about to break, they might smile and say, "I'm okay," but the tone fades, just enough for you to feel the truth underneath. That is what you must learn to hear. And here is the deeper truth: once you learn to hear others this way, you start to hear yourself more clearly too. You catch the moments when your own tone shifts. When you say you are fine, but no, you are not. When your voice speeds up because you are anxious. When you speak quietly, not from peace, but from fear. This awareness changes you. It softens you. It grounds you. And it makes you stronger. So practice this today. Listen not just for words, but for tone. Feel what is beneath the surface. Notice when someone says something ordinary, but their voice carries something more. And let that guide your response. You do not need to fix them. You do not need to offer advice. You just need to be present long enough for the truth to feel safe in your silence. That is what makes you trustworthy. That is what makes you rare. Chapter 4. Read their silence like you read their words. Most people fear silence. They think it means something is wrong, something is broken, something needs to be filled. So they rush to speak, to explain, to smooth over the quiet. But those who understand people, truly understand them, know that silence is not a void. It is a language. And often, it is the clearest one. The untrained ear only hears what is said. The observant heart hears what is withheld. Because people do not always express their truth in words. They express it in pauses, in delays, in the way their energy shifts when a subject is brought up, in the space between questions and answers. That space that silence holds more weight than most realize. You want to grow in social intelligence? Learn to read silence like you read sentences. Learn to feel what it means when someone pulls back, withdraws, or simply says less. It is not always avoidance. Sometimes it is a test. A moment to see if you will notice. If you will rush past it, or pause long enough to recognize something is being said, even if no sound is made. When someone goes quiet after a question, that matters. When they stop making eye contact, that matters. When their usual rhythm breaks, even for a breath, that matters. But if you are only listening to words, you will miss it all. You will respond to what was said and completely overlook what was actually felt. Silence is not awkward. It is honest. And those who can stay present in silence, who do not panic, who do not rush to fill the air, become trusted in ways others never do. Because they send a powerful message: I am not afraid of your quiet. I do not need to fix it. I am here even in the stillness. That kind of presence is rare. Most people speak to relieve their own discomfort. They talk over tension. They change topics. They offer quick answers. But what if silence was not something to escape? What if it was the very space where real connection begins? Think about it. When someone feels hurt, they may not explain it. But they might fall silent. That is a message. When someone feels anxious, they may not admit it. But they might pause more often, look away, breathe differently. That is a message. When someone wants to say something but is unsure, they might delay. That is a message. But you will never hear any of it unless you train yourself to stay with the silence. This takes strength. Emotional strength. Because sitting in silence means giving up control. It means resisting the urge to speak, to fix, to prove. It means being willing to hold the space and let the moment breathe without rushing it to resolution. And here is the paradox: when people feel your calm in silence, they begin to speak. Not because you pushed, but because you made it safe. That safety is what opens people up. That safety is what builds trust. Not your advice. Not your words. Your ability to stay present while they find their own. You do not have to interpret everything. You do not need to be a mind-minus reader. But you do need to notice. You need to pay attention to patterns. When someone who usually shares suddenly holds back, notice. When someone avoids a certain topic, notice. When their body speaks but their mouth stays shut, notice. That is where the real communication happens. And sometimes, silence means strength. Some people do not speak much because they do not feel the need to prove anything. They observe. They choose their words carefully. They sit with the moment. That kind of silence deserves respect, not suspicion. Not everyone who is quiet is hiding. Some are just rooted in their own depth. But you will only understand that if you are strong enough to join them in that space. If you are comfortable being quiet. If you do not need to be the loudest voice in the room. That is when you begin to connect not just with others, but with a deeper version of yourself. So practice this. The next time a conversation goes quiet, do not rush to fill it. Stay. Breathe. Observe. Let silence be what it is: not a problem, but a window. A chance to see what is real. You may be surprised how much people reveal when you stop demanding they explain. You become a better communicator not by saying more, but by noticing more. And silence when honored speaks volumes. Chapter 5. Ask real questions that help people open up. In a world full of noise, the rarest thing is not a good answer. It is a real question. A question that cuts through surface talk. A question that makes someone pause. A question that tells them without saying it, I care enough to go deeper. Most conversations float on the surface. How are you? What do you do? How was your weekend? We ask, we nod, we move on. But beneath that surface, there is a story. There is emotion. There is something real waiting to be seen. And the only way to reach it is through the questions you ask. People do not open up just because you listen well. They open up because you ask something that no one else has thought to ask, something simple but honest. Something gentle but sincere. That is the key. Not complexity. Not cleverness. Just real presence turned into a question. Most people are too busy thinking about what to say next. Too focused on themselves. Too nervous about how they sound. And so they miss at the moment where connection could have happened but didn't. But if you are the one who slows down, who notices, who asks with care, then everything changes. Because now the conversation is no longer a performance. It becomes a space. And when people feel that space, that pause, that curiosity without pressure, they begin to speak. Not from routine, but from truth. That is when they share things they have not said in months. That is when they hear themselves say something for the first time. That is when the wall begins to lower and real connection begins. You do not need to interrogate. You do not need to dive deep all at once. You just need to ask one honest question, rooted in presence. It might sound like, how are you really? Or what has been weighing on your mind lately? Or what is something you wish more people understood about you? They are simple. And that is why they work. Because they are not trying to prove anything. They are just trying to understand. But asking is only half the equation. The other half is what you do after. When the answer comes, you listen. You do not interrupt. You do not rush to relate. You do not turn it into a story about you. You just stay. You hold the moment. You give it room to breathe. Because that space, that quiet, attentive presence is what allows trust to grow. This is what most people miss. They ask something meaningful, but then rush the response. Or worse, they get distracted. They check their phone. They nod obsessively. And just like that, the trust is gone. Because people can feel when your question is real, and they can feel just as quickly when your attention is not. So here is the challenge: ask with care. And then stay. Stay even if the answer is uncomfortable. Stay, even if it takes a moment to come out. Stay even if it touches something raw. Because sometimes all someone needs is not advice, not solutions, just a safe place to speak. And your quiet presence might be the first place they have felt that in a long time. When you make this a habit, your relationships change. People begin to open up more. They begin to trust you more. They begin to feel that you see them, not just the version they present. And you begin to see people differently too. You start noticing the struggle behind the smile, the weight behind the words, the courage it takes to answer truthfully, even to a simple question. This is what connection is made of. Not grand gestures, not constant talking, but small, honest questions asked with sincerity, and the stillness to hold the answers that follow. So start today. In your next conversation, go beyond the usual. Ask something real. Then pause. Then listen like it matters, because it does. And when you do this often enough, you become someone different. Not just a good communicator, but someone others feel safe with. Someone they open up to. Someone who helps them feel understood, simply by asking the kind of question no one else thought to ask. Chapter 6. Make people feel heard without trying to hide. You do not have to be brilliant to be respected. You do not have to say the perfect thing to be remembered. What people want more than your cleverness, more than your expertise, is to feel heard. To feel like their voice mattered for even one moment. And the strange thing is, most people try hard to give that. They overcompensate. They nod too much, agree too quickly, mirror too obviously. But in trying to prove they are listening, they end up making it about themselves. Here is the truth: presence does not have to be loud. It does not have to be exaggerated. The most powerful kind of presence is quiet. It is steady. It is honest. And you cannot fake it. When you are truly listening, not performing, not pretending, the other person feels it. Instantly. No tricks. No techniques. Just attention. Making someone feel heard is not about always having the right response. It is about letting them complete their thought without rushing them. It is about holding the space when they go quiet. It is about giving small signals that you are still there: a slow nod, eye contact, the way your energy stays with them. Those little things say more than scripted empathy ever could. People sense when you are trying too hard. And when they do, they pull back. Because it does not feel real. It feels like effort, not presence. But when you stop trying to prove you are listening and simply listen calmly, patiently, openly, the pressure disappears. The connection deepens. And that is when they open up for real. You do not have to fix their problem. You do not have to offer brilliant insight. Most of the time, people are not looking for solutions. They are looking for a witness. Someone who does not flinch when they speak their truth. Someone who does not hijack the conversation with stories of their own. Someone who can hold space for pain without needing to rush it into positivity. And here is the surprising part: when you stop trying so hard to be helpful, you actually become more helpful. Because now, you are not pushing. You are not performing. You are simply present. And that presence, grounded, sincere, unforced, is what people remember. It is what makes them feel safe. There is a kind of listening that feels like breathing room. And when you give that to someone, they relax. They go deeper. They say the thing they were afraid to say. Not because you pried, but because you stayed. You stayed long enough for their truth to feel welcome. So many people walk through life starved of this. They are surrounded by noise, by opinions, by quick advice, but no space. No one who just listens, who just stays, who just sees them as they are without trying to change them. If you can be that kind of person, you become a refuge. A rare presence in a world that moves too fast and listens too little. But you must be honest with yourself. Are you really listening, or are you waiting for your turn to speak? Are you present, or are you already thinking about how to respond? Are you with them, or are you with your thoughts? Because the difference is felt, even if not spoken. So today, Let go of the need to impress. Let go of the urge to perform empathy. Just show up. Just listen. Just stay. Let your stillness do the talking. Let your calm attention say you matter. I am with you. That is enough. That is more than enough. You will be surprised how people open up around you, not because you tried hard to make it happen, but because you stopped trying so hard. You simply made space. And in that space, they found their voice. Chapter 7. Stay emotionally calm around intense people. Some people walk into a room like a storm. Their energy is loud, sharp, chaotic. You feel your chest tighten the moment they speak. They talk fast. They react quickly. Their presence pulls attention like gravity, not because they are grounded, but because they are unsettled. And if you are not careful, you get swept up in that intensity. You match their speed. You raise your voice. You lose your center. But here is the truth: your power does not come from outmatching their energy. It comes from not letting it shake yours. Emotional intelligence is not about controlling others. It is about regulating yourself, especially when others cannot. When someone is intense, reactive, or volatile, your job is not to fight fire with fire. Your job is to stay calm, still, grounded. Because nothing disarms emotional chaos faster than emotional steadiness. But this is hard. Because intense people often trigger your own anxiety. They make you feel like you need to respond quickly. Like silence means weakness. Like backing down means losing. But those are illusions. And if you fall for them, you step into their world, a world where reaction rules and presence disappears. Instead, step back. Breathe slower. Speak softer. Let their energy pass without taking it personally. Let their emotions crash without letting it flood into yours. This is not weakness. This is control. Not of them, but of yourself. Think of yourself like a tree. The wind may howl, the rain may fall, but you do not move. You feel it, but you do not bend with every gust. You stay rooted. And because of that, others begin to calm too. Because when someone is emotionally unsettled, what they secretly want, even if they never say, it is someone who is not. When you can hold your calm in the face of someone else's intensity, you shift the dynamic. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer try to win the argument. You watch it play out, and you choose when and how to speak. You stay anchored. This takes practice. It takes awareness. You have to know your triggers. You have to be able to feel your heart racing, your jaw tightening, your voice rising, and choose to pause anyway. To breathe through it. To not let the moment steal your self-minus control. That is emotional strength. That is maturity. That is power. And here is something you need to remember: intense people often speak from pain, not clarity. Their volume is not always confidence. Their speed is not always intelligence. Sometimes it is just unprocessed emotion looking for a target. If you take it personally, you become that target. If you stay calm, you help them return to clarity without even saying much. You do not need to match their tone. You do not need to explain yourself right away. Sometimes the most powerful move is stillness. A pause. A look that says, I am not moving just because you are. That quiet defiance changes everything. Over time, people begin to trust your steadiness. They come to you not because you have all the answers, but because you do not lose yourself in their storm. You are the calm they cannot find elsewhere. You are the ground they forget exists. So, train yourself for these moments. Practice breathing slower when others speed up. Practice lowering your voice when others raise theirs. Practice pausing before you respond, not to manipulate but to stay clear. And if you must speak, do it from a place of presence, not pressure. The world is full of noise, full of urgency, full of people who confuse intensity with power. But your strength will be different. Your strength will be calm, measured, deep. And in time, it will speak louder than the storm ever could. Chapter 8. Recognize hidden signals people do not talk about. Most of what people communicate is not spoken. It shows up in expressions, in posture, in hesitation. It is in the glance they avoid, the way they hold their hands, the sudden shift in their breathing when a certain topic comes up. And if you are not paying attention, if you only listen to what is said, you will miss the truth entirely. Because human beings do not always say what they feel, but they always show it. Silently, subtly, unintentionally. The untrained eye moves too fast. It hears the story and takes it at face value. But the trained observer, the one who listens with more than just ears, catches everything the words try to hide. That is the skill you must cultivate. The ability to recognize hidden signals. The language that lives between the lines. Someone says they are excited, but their shoulders are slumped. That is a signal. Someone tells you everything is fine, but their eye contact vanishes the moment you look at them. That is a signal. Someone talks with energy, but their voice breaks when they say a certain name. That is a signal. And when you train yourself to notice these things, not to judge, but to understand, your connection with others deepens. But here is the secret: to see others clearly, you must first slow down. Presence is the only tool sharp enough to detect what most people miss. You must be willing to sit in silence, to observe without speaking, to notice the moment someone crosses their arms, shifts their weight, or fidgets slightly. These are not meaningless movements. They are responses. Clues. Traces of internal conflict, stress, or emotion that has no voice yet. And no, you do not need to analyze every gesture. You are not looking for certainty. You are looking for patterns, shifts, tension, repetition. You are building intuition, not a script. Because human behavior is not math. It is energy. And energy does not lie. The more aware you become, the less you need to ask. People start revealing themselves without even realizing it. And you, with calm attention, become someone they feel strangely safe around. Not because you asked the right question, but because you noticed what they could not say. And you did not rush to expose it. You just stayed. Sometimes people do not open up because they do not feel understood. But when someone senses that you already feel what they are not saying, without pushing, without pressure, something softens. I will comes down. They lean in. That is how trust begins. Not with intensity, but with quiet understanding. This is what makes you different. You are not just present, you are attuned. You do not just hear, you feel. You are not scanning for flaws, you are sensing for truth. And that sensitivity, trained with discipline, becomes one of your greatest strengths. But it starts with awareness, with slowing down, with learning to see before you speak. It is not about control. It is about care. You care enough to be still. You care enough to notice. You care enough not to force someone into vulnerability, but to create a space where their hidden signals feel safe to surface. This is how deep connection is built. Not through endless talking, but through quiet recognition. When you see what others ignore, you begin to lead in silence. You guide without pushing. You influence without needing to convince. Because now your presence speaks more clearly than words ever could. So train yourself today. Watch the people around you. Not with judgment. With openness. What are they not saying? What are they showing instead? What tension is in their jaw? What emotion flickers across their face before they smile? Notice it. Let it register. Do not react. Just hold it. You'll know when and if it is time to speak. Because sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is see what someone is afraid to say and let them know, without words, that it is okay. Chapter 9. Respond without making it about you. Most people listen just long enough to find their opening, that moment where they can bring the conversation back to themselves. Someone shares something painful, and suddenly the listener is telling their own story. Not out of cruelty. Not out of selfishness. Simply out of habit. Such a urge to relate. To connect through similarity. But often, what it does instead is shift the spotlight away from the speaker. And in that shift, something precious is lost: the feeling of being truly heard. When someone opens up, especially about something heavy, personal, or raw, they are not asking for a mirror. They are not looking for comparison. They are searching for space. A safe container where their words are not swallowed by someone else's experience. And that container is built by your ability to hold their story without inserting your own. This takes discipline. Because the instinct to share is strong. You want to say, "I know exactly how you feel," or "that happened to me too," or "here is what I did in that situation." You mean well. But sometimes, meaning well is not enough. What they need is not your story. What they need is your stillness. Your presence is powerful when it stays with them, not drifting into your own history. Not solving, not comparing. Just witnessing. Quietly. With care. With respect for the sacred space they are opening up. This does not mean you never speak. It means you speak with restraint. With awareness. With the clear intent to support, not to center yourself. You ask gentle questions. You validate their feelings. You hold the silence that follows their words without rushing to fill it. That is how you show someone they matter, not because their story connects to yours, but because their story stands on its own. And here is the paradox: when you stop trying to relate, you create space for real connection. Because now it is not about you. It is about them. And people feel that. They feel the shift. They feel the rare relief of not having to compete for attention, of being given the full floor without interruption, comparison, or performance. This is emotional maturity. It is not flashy. It is not dramatic. But it is deeply felt. Because in a world where most people are waiting to speak, being the one who stays with another person's truth without redirecting the moment, that makes you unforgettable. But it takes practice. It takes awareness of your patterns. It takes the humility to recognize that your story, while valid, is not always needed. It takes strength to hold your tongue when your ego wants to share. And it takes care, deep, intentional care, to make someone else feel like the center of the moment without needing to steal it. So check yourself. When someone shares, pause. Before you speak, ask, is what I am about to say for them or for me? That one question alone can change everything. Because if it is for you, wait. Hold it. Let the moment breathe. And if it is for them, speak slowly. Speak gently. Speak with the intention to serve, not to shift. Over time, this becomes second nature. You stop rushing to be understood. You focus instead on understanding. You stop proving your own pain and start honoring someone else's. And people begin to feel something around you they rarely feel elsewhere: peace, safety, presence. And when you do share when the time truly calls for it, your words will carry more weight. Because they are not habitual. They are intentional. And people can feel that difference. So practice this today. The next time someone speaks from a vulnerable place, resist the urge to match their pain with your own. Stay with them. Let their words land. Let your silence speak for you. And when you do respond, make it about them, not by force, but by care. That is how you build trust that lasts. That is how you create space for truth. That is how you lead, not through louder words, but through quieter wisdom. Chapter 10. Master the pause before you speak. In a world obsessed with speed, the pause feels foreign. We rush to answer, to explain, to react. We fill silence out of habit, not intention. But what if the most powerful part of communication was not what you said, but what you waited to say? What if the pause, the space between stimulus and response, was where wisdom lives? Most people speak from impulse. A comment triggers them, and they reply. A question is asked, and they answer immediately. There is no gap. No breath. No moment of presence. And so their words reflect reaction, not thought. Emotion, not awareness. But those who train themselves to pause even for a second become different. They begin to respond, not react. They begin to choose, not just speak. The pause is your power. It is the space where you gather your awareness, where you ground yourself before you move. It is the difference between lashing out and leading. Between saying what you feel in the moment and saying what the moment truly needs. That split-second silence, when held with intention, changes everything. You want to become someone others respect, someone whose words carry weight. Then start here. Train yourself to pause. Not a dramatic pause. Not a theatrical moment. Just a breath. A subtle stop. A conscious shift from reaction to reflection. When someone says something offensive, pause. When someone opens up, pause. When emotions rise in your chest, pause. This pause is not weakness. It is strength. Because it says, I will not be controlled by emotion. I will choose who I am in this moment. Think of the people you admire most. The mentors. The quiet leaders. The ones who walk into a room and everyone listens. They are not the fastest to speak. They are the most deliberate. Every word feels intentional. Every response feels grounded. Why? Because they mastered the pause. They are not speaking to prove. They are speaking from presence. And here is the beauty of the pause: it makes people feel safe. When you pause before responding, they feel your presence. They feel you are not rushing, that you are considering their words, that you are not triggered or impatient. That one moment of stillness tells them you matter. I am here. I am listening. But you must practice this, because your instincts will fight it. They will tell you to jump in, to fill the silence, to defend yourself, to fix, to impress. And every time you resist that urge, every time you pause, you build internal strength. You take back control from the noise, from the emotion, from the rush. This pause is not just useful in conversation. It is powerful in life. Before you make a decision, pause. Before you send that message, pause. Before you react to criticism, pause. These moments may seem small, but they shape who you become. They shape your relationships, your leadership, your clarity, and eventually, this pause becomes your instinct. It becomes the signature of your presence. People start to feel your depth not because you speak slowly, but because you speak with intention. You stop throwing words like darts. You start offering them like tools chosen carefully, held with respect. So today, train this muscle. In your next conversation, pause before you reply. Just one breath. One quiet second. You do not need to say, "Let me think." Just think. Just feel. Just be present for a moment longer than usual. And watch how different the moment becomes. The pause is not the absence of communication. It is the foundation of it. Because in that space you reclaim your center. And from that center, you speak with clarity, not noise. With purpose, not panic. With strength, not speed. That is the difference between someone who speaks and someone who leads. Chapter 11. Stop oversharing to seek connection. There is a growing belief in today's world that vulnerability means saying everything. That sharing deeply and immediately is the fastest way to build trust. So people speak quickly about their traumas, their heartbreaks, their fears, hoping to feel seen. But what often happens instead is the opposite. The connection feels forced. The moment feels too much too soon. Because real connection is not built on exposure. It is built on presence, timing, and truth that is earned, not rushed. Oversharing is not vulnerability. It is often a response to fear. Fear of being unseen. Fear of being left out. Fear that if people do not know your story right away, they will not understand you at all. So you rush. You reveal too much. You try to prove your depth before trust has a chance to grow naturally. But the most powerful people, the ones who truly connect, do not overshare. They speak with precision, with intention. They understand that silence holds value, that privacy builds trust, that boundaries are not barriers, they are signs of self-respect. When you overshare too quickly, you unconsciously ask others to carry something they did not agree to hold. And that pressure, even if subtle, can push people away. It is not that your story is too much. It is that the moment was not ready for it. The space was not built yet. The trust was not earned yet. And in trying to skip the process, you miss the connection you were hoping to find. True connection does not need a flood of detail. It needs presence. People do not feel close to you because they know your past. They feel close when they feel safe around your presence, when your energy is calm, your focus is real, and your silence feels steady. Then and only then can deeper stories unfold with mutual respect and care. This does not mean you should stay silent or hide who you are. It means you learn to feel the moment, to sense when the space is strong enough to hold what you want to share. And when it is not, you wait. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The irony is, when you stop oversharing, you actually invite deeper connection. Because now your presence feels grounded, not needy. You are not speaking to be seen. You are seeing. You are not rushing to be understood. You are creating understanding through quiet attentiveness. This takes practice. You must be honest with yourself. Ask, am I sharing this because it is true for the moment, or because I want to feel important? Am I inviting connection or trying to demand it? Those questions will guide you back to integrity. And here is the truth: your depth is not proven by how much you share. It is shown in how well you listen, in how grounded you are, in how comfortable you are with silence, with space, with building trust slowly. That quiet strength says more than any life story could. Let people get to know you in layers. Let your presence speak before your past does. Let trust be built through time, not trauma. And when you do share, let it come from stillness, not urgency. From peace, not panic. The people who are meant to walk with you will never need your entire life story in the first conversation. They will feel your energy. They will sense your truth. And they will stay not because you revealed everything, but because you revealed enough. So choose your words with care. Hold your story with respect. Trust that real connection cannot be forced, it must be earned. Slowly, silently, steadily. Chapter 12. Know when to end a conversation gracefully. Not every conversation is meant to last. Not every moment requires a perfect closing line. Sometimes, the wisest thing you can do is end a conversation not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Because lingering too long, trying too hard to stretch a connection, often weakens what was once meaningful. True emotional intelligence is not just about starting strong. It is about knowing when to let go, when to step back, when to close the space with grace. Most people are afraid of ending things. They fear seeming rude. They fear missing out. They fear being misunderstood. So, they keep talking. They fill the silence. They chase the next point, the next laugh, the next nod of approval. But in doing so, they dilute their presence. What could have been memorable becomes muddled. A powerful conversation is not measured by length. It is measured by depth, by sincerity, by whether the energy was clean and clear. And often that clarity is strongest when you know how and when to walk away, not with drama, but with dignity. You can feel it, can you not? That moment when the rhythm shifts, when the connection slows, when the energy dips and the purpose fades. That is your signal. Not to panic, not to force, but to close with quiet strength. To honor what was shared and let it rest. Ending a conversation well is an invisible skill. You do not need grand exits. You just need presence. You thank them for the moment. You give a sincere word. You make eye contact. And you walk away with calm. That small act says more about your awareness than any speech could. But here's where discipline comes in. Because the ego often wants to stay longer to make sure you were liked, to get one more laugh, to avoid feeling like you left too early. That is not presence. That is performance. And the more you trust yourself to leave when the time is right, the more powerful your presence becomes. This applies in every setting: social events, deep talks, brief check-scenes. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is close the space so the moment remains clean. You do not need to explain yourself. You do not need to apologize. Your calm exit becomes a statement: I know who I am. I honor time, mine endures. And this is not just about walking away from people. It is about learning to end emotional loops. Do not rehash the same story over and over. Do not keep conversations alive in your head long after they ended in reality. Emotional maturity is knowing when a moment has served its purpose and letting it go. Think of the people who leave an impact on you. They often say little. They do not overstay. They respect your time. Their presence lingers not because they stayed long, but because they were fully there. And then just as gracefully they were gone. That rhythm is powerful. It keeps the connection fresh. It lets the silence after mean something. So train yourself. In your next interaction, listen for the end. Feel when the energy slows. And instead of pushing through, pull back. Close with warmth. Leave them with clarity, not confusion. And walk away knowing that sometimes what you do not say carries the most weight. This is how you protect your energy. This is how you lead without force. This is how you leave people better, not by giving more, but by knowing when enough has been said. Chapter 13. Be the calmest person in the room. There is a presence you can feel before anyone speaks. A kind of silent authority that shifts the energy of a space without effort. It does not come from volume. It does not come from charisma. It comes from calm. Deep, unshakable calm. And if you want to command respect, not demand it, that is where you begin. You become the calmest person in the room. Most people do not realize how contagious energy is. One anxious person can infect a group. One angry voice can set off a chain reaction. But the reverse is also true. One calm person, fully grounded, fully present, can neutralize tension just by being there. Not by controlling others, but by mastering themselves. This kind of calm is not passive. It is not weakness. It is not pretending everything is fine. It is power. Quiet power. Because when everything around you feels urgent, chaotic, emotionally charged, and you remain centered, people start to lean toward you. They trust you. They feel safe with you, even if they do not know why. But this calm is not automatic. It must be built, trained, protected. It begins with knowing who you are, with doing the inner work, with recognizing your triggers and refusing to let them own you. It is the discipline of slowing your breath when everything tells you to rush, of softening your tone when others get loud, of waiting before you respond, even when your ego screams to react. You want influence? Then walk into every room with the intention to anchor it, not to match its chaos. You want to lead? Then show people what steadiness looks like. Let your energy say, "We're not going to be pulled into panic. We are not going to escalate just because others do. We are going to breathe. We are going to see clearly." And here is the truth: the calmest person in a room often ends up being the most respected. Not because they spoke the most, but because they did not need to. Their restraint said everything. Their clarity guided others without controlling them. Their presence alone shifted the dynamic. Think about it when you are in a crisis. Who do you turn to? Not the one who panics. Not the one who shouts. You look for the one whose energy is still. The one who is not flinching. The one who is not controlled by the moment. That is the person you trust. That is the person who leads. So become that. Train yourself. Every day, in small ways. When emotions rise, slow down. When others react, breathe deeper. When things get loud, get quieter inside. Not to suppress, but to anchor. Because your ability to stay calm is not just about you. It is a service to everyone around you. You do not need to prove you are in control. You simply need to be in control of yourself. Your words. Your body. Your breath. And when you are, people feel it. They listen more. They react less. They start matching your energy instead of you absorbing theirs. This is how you shift a room. This is how you lead without a title. This is how you earn trust before a single sentence is spoken. You show people by example that calm is possible. And in doing so, you give them permission to find it in themselves. So from now on, in every space you enter, decide who you are going to be. Will you be pulled, or will you anchor? Will you chase control, or will you become the calm that makes control unnecessary? Because the person who holds the most power is not the one who speaks the loudest. It is the one who needs the fewest words because their presence already says everything. Chapter 14. Earn respect quietly and consistently. Respect is not something you demand. It is not something you announce. It is something you earn in silence over time, through consistency. In a world that celebrates loud declarations and quick impressions, this truth often gets buried. But the people who are truly respected are not always the most visible. They are the ones who show up every day without needing applause. The ones who follow through, not for credit, but because it is who they are. You do not build a solid reputation by speaking well once. You build it by acting with integrity when no one is watching. You build it by being the same person in every room, not shifting to please, not adjusting your values to fit in. Just steady. Just clear. Just you again and again. There is a strength in that. A quiet strength. Because people start to notice you do not overpromise. You do not chase attention. You are not driven by emotion. You are grounded. And the more consistent you are, the more trust you build. Not through noise, but through proof. Most people chase recognition. But those who understand the long game, they chase reliability. They focus on what they can control: their effort, their attitude, their presence. They do not care who's watching, because they know that the most meaningful respect is not loud. It is felt. It is whispered in the minds of others when your name comes up. That one shows up. That one means what they say. This is how you become unshakable. You are not seeking to impress. You are seeking to align. Your actions match your words. Your presence matches your promises. And over time, without needing to convince anyone, you become someone whose presence carries weight. But it takes patience. It takes daily discipline. It means choosing long-term credibility over short-term praise. It means saying no to shortcuts. It means walking away from attention when it is not aligned with truth. And that is hard, especially when the world rewards noise. But your reward is different. It is internal. It is the calm that comes from knowing you did not fake it. You built it. Think of the people you respect most. Not the ones who shouted the loudest. The ones who stayed true. The ones who showed up even when it was hard. The ones who kept their word, especially when it would have been easier to quit. That is the kind of respect that does not fade. That is the kind of influence that does not need volume. You become that kind of person not through grand gestures, but through small, repeated ones. How you listen. How you pause. How you follow through. How you speak less but mean more. How you treat people when there is nothing to gain. That is what earns real respect. So, let others chase the spotlight. You build the foundation. Let others perform for applause. You become someone whose silence speaks louder than their speeches. Because in the end, what people remember is not your noise. It is your presence. Your consistency. Your unwavering calm. And when that respect comes quietly, slowly, deeply, it will not be something you need to hold up for the world to see. It will be something you carry within. Unshakable. Earned. Real. Chapter 15. Influence people without forcing or pleasing. There is a kind of influence that requires no effort. No convincing. No chasing. It is not built on charm or pressure. It is built on presence. On clarity. On the quiet confidence of someone who does not need to control or be liked in order to lead. And this kind of influence, the kind that lasts, only grows in those who stop trying to force outcomes or please everyone. Most people believe they must either dominate or accommodate. They push their opinions hard, trying to convince. Or they bend constantly, trying to win approval. But neither of these paths led to real influence. They led to exhaustion, to resentment, to disconnection. Because both are rooted in fear, the fear of being ignored, rejected, or left behind. But true influence begins when you let go of that fear. When you stop needing to be agreed with. When you stop fearing disagreement. When you become rooted in something deeper than opinion, your truth, your presence, your intention. You do not need everyone to agree with you to stand strong. You do not need everyone to like you to be effective. You only need to remain centered. Influence is not about talking more. It is about saying what matters clearly, calmly, and without attachment to outcome. You state your truth, then release the need to control how it is received. You offer your insight, then stay grounded whether it is accepted or not. That kind of detachment is powerful. Because people can feel it. And in that feeling, trust grows. The person who influences most is not the one who pushes. It is the one who stays clear, no matter how the room shifts. They do not beg for attention. They do not adjust their voice to fit every crowd. They simply are, in that consistency, that calm clarity, invites others to adjust around them. This is not indifference. It is discipline. It is choosing to value alignment over approval. It is trusting that truth, when spoken with presence, plants seeds even if those seeds take time to grow. You do not chase the result. You trust the process. That patience is rare. That is what sets you apart. When you no longer need to force your ideas onto others, you create space for true dialogue. And when you no longer need to be liked, your presence becomes more honest, more whole. You are not filtering yourself. You are not shrinking. You are simply here, steady, calm, real. And ironically, the less you try to persuade, the more persuasive you become. Because people listen differently when they feel no pressure. They sense you are not trying to win. You are just sharing what you know to be true. And that tone, soft but firm, clear but humble, invites trust without trying. So stop chasing influence. Become influence. Stop trying to please. Choose to serve quietly, without attachment. Let your energy speak before your words do. Let your silence carry weight. Let your presence do the work that performance never could. And remember, the most powerful kind of influence does not come from the mouth. It comes from the way you carry yourself. From your stillness in conflict. From your clarity in confusion. From your peace in noise. Lead that way. Let them feel it. Let them adjust to your calm. And know without needing anyone to say it that who you are has already shifted the room.